more of another presentation. We're going to be looking at the case study, the new shift towards measuring the value of automation. So this is if you head into the main timeline and then go across, you'll see that you can join that session, and that will enable you. As a reminder, if you are interested in CPEs, if you're watching me and you're joining me just now, I want to remind everyone that we are going to be listening to a case study with the new shift towards measuring the value of automation. I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation with Leslie Sequeira, the Head of Information Technology and Data at Toyota Material Handling, and N. Shashidhar, AVP and Senior Director and Global Product Head for Assist Edge. As a reminder, before I hand the virtual stage over to these gentlemen, please do vote in the CPE poll at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session. And if you're interested in learning more about Edge Verve, please do head over to their virtual booth. Otherwise, for those of you who are interested, let's take it away. Thank you so much, N. Shashidhar and Leslie Sequeira.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Hello and warm welcome to Intelligent Automation Week. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we would be discussing on the topic of the new shift towards measuring the value of automation. My name is Shashidhar. I am the Global Product Head of Assist Edge, a leading intelligent automation platform from Edge Verve. I am very excited to have with me Mr. Leslie Sequeira, Head of IT and Data, Toyota Material Handling. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shashi.
Great to have you with us today. Leslie, you have been instrumental in driving automation in your organization, and you have been a very passionate advocate of the power of automation and AI in driving business value. I'm really keen to understand your perspective on this term value, the real value of automation. How do enterprises see this value? How do enterprises measure this value? And how do enterprise scale this value, right? So let me begin by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about the automation journey in your organization? Where did you begin? How did you go about picking the use cases? How did you go about building the roadmap?
Sure, absolutely, Shashi. And before that, thanks for having me on here so that we can share some of our story on automation as well, and definitely looking forward to learning from a lot of other businesses as well. So to your question about the journey that we've been through. So just to start it off, we really tried to build a philosophy around developing a culture of innovation. So in simple terms, what that means is don't be afraid to explore a few things. So philosophy, even for automation, and it's the same thing for a lot of other things we've begun, on the technology front. Explore, then if you find the success, you expand, and in some cases, some successes catch fire. Then you explode the adoption there. So we had heard about RPA, and this journey began around 2.5, 3 years ago. So we had heard about RPA. So what we did was put a small budget aside. Let's explore this and what it is. Now, in terms of use cases, there were several. I would say most businesses have a lot of processes where you have a lot of manual work that you want to eliminate, and you just struggle with it over the years. So we chose a simple rule-based business case which had a massive backlog. So we said, okay, let's give it a try, right? So the bot was able to execute a rule-based process very easily. We found out that after the implementation, which took us like maybe 8 to 10 weeks, we had a fallout rate, which is the failure rate, of around 60%. So only 40% success, 60% fallout. But that's what rule-based is. And we were also learning, our partner was understanding our ecosystem, etc. Within 4 months, the fallout was only 20%. That means we had 80% success. We eliminated our 5 years backlog within 6 to 7 months. That was unplanned. We had huge success there. So then, in order to build a roadmap, You have to create adoption. And what we did was we had certain lunch and learn sessions. Who doesn't like a pizza for free and learn something about technology, right? So, and this was not done by IT, this was done by the business and IT collaboration. We then expanded it to some executive learning sessions. So there was buy-in at the executive level. And that led to formation of automation COE in our company. And that really drove more and more adoption and our journey on automation.
That's great to hear. I really love the phrase that you said. Explore, expand, and probably explore. Right. So when you look back at this journey, Leslie, over the last 3 years, did you see any surprises in terms of what you planned versus what actually transpired, and what were the key lessons that you learned over the last 3 years?
Sure. Well, any surprises? What I would say was, as we got in more and more business cases in, one of the learnings was the effort to benefit ratio is not always constant. What I mean by that is some business cases are very painful. They take a lot of effort by the automation team, and you do get a benefit, but it's small. The ROI is small, and the timeline to recover that ROI or investment is pretty long. And then there are these what I term as golden nuggets, where the effort is low, but you get huge benefit, and the recovery is very short, huge investments. So that was a great learning, because you want to set expectations at our executive level and even on the business that, hey, all the recovery of your investment is not equal. So you have to look at the program as a whole, not as a case by case basis, right? So you have to scale down certain expectations if you have some golden nugget success. You also have to understand, and what we learned was scalability. So even if a business process that you've adopted automation for is not giving you some great value that is visible, but there is a lot of hidden value that you're benefiting from that automation that is actually helping adopt some other processes pretty rapidly. So again, the learning for us is don't look at a business use case one at a time. Look at the program as a whole. And I would say that was a good learning, and we learned this within 6 months. So we were able to adjust expectations as well.
Oh, that's pretty fast in terms of getting a sense of this learning in 6 months. I would say is helped you definitely this journey. So as you went about in this journey, can you share some of the roadblocks or challenges that you faced, and how did you go about addressing them?
Sure. We had a lot of challenges. I wouldn't say roadblocks, but and challenges. It is about the journey, and it's about exploring and learning, right? So business buy-in, was definitely important. So once you introduce a new technology, you want high adoption rate. So what do you do for that? There is always sometimes fear of new technology. There is always fear of change. So roadblocks to learning and change management, very important. And people are always comfortable with what they're doing, and when you ask for any change, it is like, this is how I've always done it. So inserting the mindset of why are you doing it, those were some of the challenges and roadblocks that we had to overcome ourselves.
Yeah. No, I completely echo that, Leslie. From my own experience, one of the key lessons I have learned in looking at how enterprises adopt automation is really about people and change management. Finally boils down to that. Finally, intelligent automation is built by people and for the people. So people have to be kind of at the center of any successful transformation. So I completely echo this. Now, as we move to the next this one, so in this journey, as we all know, right, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So how did you go? When did you realize that you need to start measuring both the process as well as the impact or the outcome of this automation journey? And how do we wrap our heads around what should we measure when we take up an automation?
Sure, absolutely. Any investment in technology, or I would say any investment in life, you have to measure the benefits and ROI. And as a business, resources funding is always limited, right? So how do I divert my funding towards a new platform, new practice, versus I support some of the existing platforms? So measurement is always important. You have to measure so that you can then decide how much more to invest. Is it a benefit analysis, etc. So the way we look at it is there are two primary ways you can measure, right? Quantifiable, and there are things that are not quantifiable. Quantifiable, number of hours saved, that's easy to measure. We work with the business, we do our analysis, we have forms, and we have questionnaires and surveys, etc. As part of the quantifiable as well, it is very important not to just measure what you achieved when you launched, right? You have to measure that process of automation, even for a business function. You have to measure it over time. You have to keep your pulse. As I mentioned in my earlier, my initial example, we started off with a high error rate, but that error rate significantly went down over time. So that means the benefits were not what we launched, but it is over time, we actually gained a lot more than we had actually expected. So quantifiable measurement, initial as well as over a period of time, is extremely essential. Now let's talk about the non-quantifiable, right? It's very difficult to measure, but what are the business benefits gained through this automation beyond the hours that you saved, right? One of the things that we have really learned is it is the velocity and the accuracy of a process, right? So it is done much faster, and it is very accurate. Bots don't make mistakes, right? What it does, if it is done like cycle counting, some of the automations that we have done, now we don't have to do it once a month. We can do it once a week, right? So there is a lot of velocity that the business has gained. You also measure, very important for the non-quantifiable, you measure certain business area KPIs. In the sales, you have participation rate, you have fill rate on the parts business, you have customer service ratings on the customer support side of things, time to delivery, whatever your business KPIs are. For the departments that have adopted automation and you have gained certain velocity and accuracy, what is the impact on the business KPIs, and can you relate them back to certain initiatives technology has taken? One of them is automation. So I think that is the framework that we have adopted both for quantifiable and non-quantifiable measurements of success, and always measure what matters.
Absolutely. And I think, Leslie, this measurement also brings a sense of a common purpose so that people start seeing the progress in a unified way. So absolutely. Once you achieve the initial success, Leslie, what is the thought process behind the measurement during the initial success? Is probably very different from the measurement once it starts scaling, right? So what's the thought process in terms of how do you replicate the success in the initial success to an enterprise-wide adoption?
Sure. Well, as I said earlier, you adopt a new technology, you introduce a new technology, adoption rate is extremely important. We measure the success of a new technology initiative by the business value and also the adoption. Only if a small area of your business has adopted it, we've done a bad job. As I said, we have created this goal for a culture of innovation, not just innovation, but a culture of innovation, so that then there is innovation driven by the business as well, right? So as I said, we started, we explored, we expanded, and then and in order to explore it, here are the things we did. We continued with the bottom-up organic needs that were coming by the business. You fill out the questionnaire, you do an analysis of your business process. What are the areas you can automate, right? But we also did a top-down strategy. What I mean by that is we looked at the industry segments, and you look at the industry automation heat map. Which are the business functions that have higher adoption within the industry versus which are the functions which are not, right? For example, finance, very high automation capabilities and possibilities. Strategy, human resources probably lower, right? So we actually did a heat map analysis with Gartner and with our partners, and then we brought those to those business owners. This is where the industry is in terms of automation. I think we have some great opportunities here. So that was one way that we were able to increase the adoption, and there's a lot more that we did within the enterprise to merchandise that, but these are some of the few things that we used in order to increase the adoption rate as well.
And is there a 80-20 rule in this, or it's just that adopt at scale, like you said, that if the adoption is very low, irrespective of impact, the end output is not that great. So do you follow an 80-20 rule saying that let's take the 20% of the processes that have the maximum impact, or you just go about adoption at scale?
So we've not really see always, yes, in a general sense, within a business function, we are giving equal opportunities for all business areas. So we are not saying a business area, if you wanted to adopt automation and you come up with some ideas, we are not going to listen to it because you actually have a law. Remember, initially we said, we're not looking at business case by business case. We're looking at the overall program success as a whole. And so, but within a business area, I think the business is doing a fantastic job with partnership with our automation COE to identify which is the biggest bang for our buck. And let's go after that first, and then we'll increase it. So within business areas, that 80-20 is happening, but we are not keeping any business area out.
Okay. So Leslie, as we start scaling, I'm sure the complexity of the process that you pick up for automation also increases, right? So what's your thought in terms of how did the various technologies, not just the automation but the AI, enable you to start taking up more and more complex process to automate?
That's a great question. See, so it starts off with tactical, right? So we always start off with certain tactical needs. We have some pain points, etc. You increase the adoption rate, but then as you create this environment, again, it doesn't start. It's not only at the start. The merchandising and the lunch and learn and the learnings that I mentioned, you have to keep going. So that's the job of the automation COE, right? So you create this environment of learning. You're constantly learning on what new platforms and what things are available, and then you share the art of the possible with your business. Now, what that does, the organization as a whole builds a maturity of thinking around automation. Can automation adapt to my changing business needs, right? Can automation provide me business trend analysis? So where are my cost overruns? We know where the cost overruns are, but what are the trends that I'm having? Where do I need to focus my time and energy, or that of my department? What are the major customer pain points? So we have, as I said, KPIs, track those KPIs, etc. Right? So can automation be combined with advanced analytics and provide me more business insights? Right? So can the bot get smarter on its own and tackle more of the variation? So I think AI is definitely helping. The automation platforms that have a cognitive component to it are definitely adding more value. The conversation, at least within our organization, I'm sure I've spoken to some of my peers as well, is shifting from just deterministic rule-based bots to more automation maturity to help the business, also help my day-to-day tasks, right? So I think with AI and some of the maturity that these platforms are growing, a lot of money being invested in the technology, I'm seeing, I think rule-based automation will just become table stakes. Every platform will offer rule-based, period. Now, the benefit of the platforms will be, or the competitive edge of the platforms will be, where is the additional intelligence that this will offer, right? So we are in the intelligent automation week. We are not in the automation week today. So I think that's a great question.
You said that your journey has been 3-year-old in terms of the automation journey. So when you look ahead over the next 3 to 5 years, how do you plan to drive adoption in your organization?
Well, so as I said, I think we have a good level of enterprise-wide adoption. We have the right backing from the executives and the business, so the funding will flow. And in a way, we are saving a lot of hours in mundane tasks, and that those business areas that have actually adopted the automation, there is a certain level of culture of innovation I spoke about earlier, right? So it is helping fuel the culture of innovation. It is helping some businesses to take on more business because it's not a linear increase in headcounts. We are very, most organizations are lean these days, right? So automation first mindset is driving in most cases. The COE is constantly learning about the platforms and what new is coming out there. What is the new functionality? Then seeing what is the new functionality that we can adopt within. What is the business value of the new functionality, right? So we don't want to just adopt new functionality, technology for the sake of technology, right? So we don't want to do that. But what is the business value? And then, again, follow the same process: explore, expand, and explode where you can. And I think AI, all is driven by business value for us, and that's our core. We try to stick to that so that we don't waste the company's money.
Absolutely. So Leslie, lastly, for enterprises who are in the early stage of automation journey, or the enterprises who have reached certain midpoint and are stuck in terms of scaling the automation, what's your advice to them?
So it all depends on each organization, the culture of adoption, etc. Right? So don't be afraid to try new things, and don't be once you achieve certain success. I would say there is a lot more on the platform. You may have achieved success in a small area, but don't close your eyes to the new technologies out there. And again, as I said, look at the program as a whole, not individual cases. Some cases may disappoint you, and you may not get the biggest. That should not be a deterrent or a decelerator for your adoption. So and then make sure you get the business buy-in. You make sure you address the individuals within the business, right? There are a lot of resistance can come if you have not merchandised it the right way, right? So you have to address, one, you create a competitiveness within the business owners. So it's easier to get the management buy-in, but then at the people level, what will it do for me? Will it make my job easier? Will it let me focus on more value-added work? Will it take my job away? These are people may not ask these things, but you have to address them, and only then you need that grassroots level adoption. And I think that's would be my recommendation is to people who are trying to explore that.
Leslie, last 1.5 years, the entire world has been grappling with this pandemic situation. What were the challenges that your organization faced, when we encountered this, and how did automation help respond to you with this new reality?
Yeah, so COVID is definitely very much front and center on a lot of people's minds, and I think it may, with the Delta variant, remain for a while now. So I think, see, we had started this before. Sometimes in a new landscape and environment, is difficult to have new things come in. But actually, for us, it worked in our favor because it was easier for us to communicate and train. People have more. We actually created during COVID. We created a not because of COVID, but it was part of our roadmap. We created a portal, automation portal for the enterprise that actually showcases everything. What are the things in the pipeline? What is the art of the possible, etc. And people were getting more and more used to consume knowledge and technology knowledge or training without classrooms. And I think the launch of our portal and our COE training, etc., actually helped us. Automation has when companies are struggling to get talent and shifting some of their talent to better value-added work, I think automation definitely will play an important role, and it has done for us as well.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for this very insightful discussion. Jordan, you open to any questions that audience have?
Thank you so much for your time today. We do have plenty of time for some questions. We actually do have a question from Kush Pathak, who was the panelist from the previous session. So it's always great to see our panelists sort of check in and continue the conversation. He wants to know, how do you make sure RPA initiatives aren't conflicting with larger technology projects happening in the same areas on your heat map?
Actually, that's a good question, right? So, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? So, do you improve your process in a certain functional area? I think there was a reference to heat map, and then adopt automation, or do you adopt automation and then while you are changing certain processes? Actually, what the philosophy we've adopted is some automation is better than none, and so we have adopted automation in certain areas. Even we were going to upgrade certain platforms. And the way we look at it is, if you had to upgrade a platform and train a human being, now you have to reconfigure the bot for the new processes. So it shouldn't be a roadblock. It also depends on, for this specific question, it depends on the timing, right? Is your pain point willing to wait till you are adopting a new platform, and then maybe the platform brings some automation, etc. So it also depends on case by case. It depends on the timing. So we've taken all of those factors into consideration, but we have not postponed certain opportunities for 3 months, 6 months, because in the future we will eventually move to the platforms. Technology, I would say technology evolution will continue, and there's no need to wait.
Do you have any thoughts as well, Shashi?
No. I completely agree with Leslie on this, because he brings the practitioner's view on the spot.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, well, I just want to remind our attendees here that we have 3 polls that have been going this session. If you want to be eligible for CPEs, please do vote in these polls. They are all, you can see all of the results now, and they are all available. So please do vote if you're interested in being eligible for CPEs.